The great crystal dome of Nexus Prime had never held so many angry voices. Representatives from 850 different species filled the massive chamber, their various forms of communication creating a chaos of sounds, lights, and chemical signals. At the center of it all sat the High Council, 12 of the galaxy's most powerful leaders, trying to restore order to what was supposed to be a civilized debate. Ambassador Zektar of the Hegemony stood at the speaking podium, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he presented his case. His people were tall, gray-skinned beings who prided themselves on logic and order. Today, however, Zektar seemed anything but calm. "Honored members of the Council," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems, "we can no longer ignore the human problem. In just 50 years, they have spread across 200 star systems. They build military ships faster than any species in recorded history. They refuse to follow our expansion treaties, and they show no respect for the ancient boundaries that have kept peace in this galaxy for 10,000 years. A holographic display appeared above the podium, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Red dots marked human colonies, and there were far too many of them. The expansion pattern looked like a disease spreading across healthy tissue. "Look at this data," Zektar continued. "The humans have violated 17 different galactic accords. They have established colonies in the forbidden sectors without permission. They have built weapons that exceed the limits set by the Arms Control Treaty. Most disturbing of all, they refuse to explain why they need so many military ships." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Velkari delegation flashed patterns of red and orange across their crystalline bodies, showing their anger. The Catel representatives clicked their mandibles in a rhythm that meant extreme displeasure. Even the usually peaceful Zephyrians were making the low humming sound that indicated deep concern. High Counselor Mordak, an ancient being whose species had helped found the Galactic Council 15,000 years ago, raised one weathered hand for silence. "What do you propose, Ambassador Zektar?" "We give them an ultimatum," Zektar replied without hesitation. "The humans must choose. They can cease all expansion beyond their current borders. They can submit to genetic modification to reduce their aggressive tendencies as the Krellians did 3,000 years ago. Or they can leave civilized space entirely." The chamber erupted in noise again. Some species cheered the proposal while others argued against it. In a corner of the Great Dome, the small human delegation sat quietly, watching the debate with calm expressions that somehow made the other species even more nervous. Ambassador Sarah Chen was a middle-aged human woman with graying hair and tired eyes. She had represented humanity on the Council for 5 years, and in that time, she had learned to read the political currents of galactic civilization. Today, those currents were all flowing in the same direction, and it was not toward humanity. She listened as speaker after speaker rose to support Zektar's proposal. The Anthari complained about human merchants undercutting their trade routes. The Beltar accused human explorers of trespassing in their sacred star systems. The Hegemony presented evidence of human military exercises that violated noise regulations in 17 different sectors. What none of them mentioned, Chen noticed, was how many times human ships had responded to distress calls from their vessels. They did not talk about the human doctors who had helped cure the Zephyrian plague 5 years ago, or the human engineers who had designed the new waste processing systems that were cleaning up the toxic zones around Hegemony industrial worlds. They did not mention how human mediators had prevented 3 different wars in the past decade. When the formal debate ended, High Counselor Mordak called for a vote. The process took 2 hours, as each species cast their decision through their preferred method. Some used vocal declarations, others manipulated colored crystals, and a few species communicated through complex chemical releases that had to be analyzed by computer systems. The final count was 847 votes in favor of the ultimatum, with only 3 opposed. Chen was not surprised to see that the 3 opposing votes came from species that had direct partnerships with human colonies. Everyone else was ready to see humanity leave. "The decision is made," Mordak announced. "Ambassador Chen, you will present this ultimatum to your government. Humanity has 30 standard days to choose their response." Chen rose slowly from her seat. The chamber fell silent as she walked to the speaking podium. Many expected her to argue, to plead, or to make threats. Instead, she simply nodded. "Thank you, High Counselor," she said in a calm voice. "The ultimatum is very clear. Humanity will need 48 hours to prepare our response." Zektar leaned forward. "Surely you want to discuss terms? Perhaps negotiate some compromise?" Chen turned to look at him directly. Her expression was neither angry nor afraid. If anything, she looked almost relieved. "No, Ambassador Zektar, your position is perfectly clear. You have told us exactly what you think of humanity and our place in this galaxy. We understand." She gathered her papers and prepared to leave. As she reached the exit, she paused and looked back at the assembled representatives. "You have made your position perfectly clear," she repeated. "Now you will see ours." The way she said it sent an odd chill through the chamber. It was not a threat or a plea. It was simply a statement of fact, delivered with the same calm tone she might use to comment on the weather. After the human delegation left, the council chamber erupted in celebration. The hegemony representatives congratulated each other on finally solving the human problem. The Velkari flashed brilliant gold patterns that indicated joy and satisfaction. The Catel performed a victory dance that involved intricate movements of their 6 legs, but a few members of the council did not join the celebration. High Counselor Mordak sat quietly, thinking about Ambassador Chen's reaction. In his 15,000 years of life, he had seen many species receive ultimatums from the council. Some had raged, others had wept, and a few had tried to bargain for better terms. None had ever reacted with such calm acceptance. Counselor Veltar of the Scientific Alliance approached Mordak after the session. Like Mordak, she had not celebrated the vote. "Something troubles you, old friend?" "The human ambassador," Mordak replied slowly. Her response was unexpected. "In what way?" She was not surprised by our decision. It was as if she had been expecting it. Mordak paused, his ancient mind working through possibilities. And her final words. They did not sound like a defeated leader making empty threats. They sounded like someone who already knew what was going to happen next. Veltar's tentacles writhed with concern. Her species was known for their analytical minds, and she had noticed the same thing. Perhaps we should have asked more questions before making this decision. Such as, where did the humans come from originally? Why are they expanding so quickly? Why do they build so many ships? Veltar's voice grew quieter. And why did Ambassador Chen look relieved when we gave her the ultimatum? But it was too late for such questions. The decision had been made, and the galaxy would soon learn whether they had solved a problem or created a much bigger one. In her ship orbiting Nexus Prime, Ambassador Chen was already sending coded messages to human space. The messages were brief and used phrases that sounded like routine diplomatic language. But to anyone who knew the code, the meaning was clear. Phase 1 was complete. It was time to begin Phase 2. The Council had made their choice. Now they would live with the consequences. The evacuation began exactly 48 hours after Ambassador Chen returned to human space. There were no dramatic speeches broadcast across the galaxy, no angry declarations of independence, and no threats of revenge. Instead, something much more unsettling happened. Humanity simply started to leave. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, human workers finished their shifts as normal, then quietly packed their belongings and boarded transport ships. The Vorthon supervisors who ran the mining operation assumed the humans were just rotating crews as they often did. It was not until the next morning that they realized none of the human workers had reported for duty, and the sophisticated drilling equipment they operated had been shut down with surgical precision. Similar scenes played out across 200 star systems. Human scientists working on joint research projects with the Ketel submitted their final reports, thanked their colleagues for the collaboration, and disappeared. Human merchants concluded their current trade agreements, delivered their final shipments, and then their vessels simply vanished from the shipping lanes. The galaxy initially celebrated these departures. News broadcasts from the major species showed images of human ships leaving various worlds, with commentators expressing relief that the aggressive expansion was finally being contained. The hegemony released official statements praising the HFY Council's wisdom in solving the human problem peacefully. But within 2 weeks, the celebrations began to turn into confusion, and then into concern. The first sign of trouble came from the Vorthan Mining Consortium. Without human workers and their advanced drilling technology, production in the asteroid fields dropped by 60% almost overnight. The Vorthans discovered that while they owned the mining rights to hundreds of asteroid belts, they had been completely dependent on human expertise to actually extract the valuable minerals. "We never realized how much we relied on them," admitted Chief Administrator Kolvex during an emergency meeting of the Vorthan Industrial Council. "They didn't just work for us. They redesigned our entire extraction process. Without their modifications, our equipment is almost useless." The Cattell faced an even more serious problem. Their entire galactic communications network, which connected over 300 worlds, began experiencing cascading failures. Emergency technician teams rushed to communication hubs across Cattell space, only to discover that the quantum entanglement systems that made faster-than-light communication possible had been designed and maintained almost entirely by human engineers. "The one basic equipment is ours," explained Chief Technician Zilak to the Cattell High Command. "But the humans modified everything. They improved our quantum stabilizers, redesigned our signal amplifiers, and created new routing algorithms that increased our communication speed by 300%. Now that they are gone, we cannot maintain these improvements. The system is slowly reverting to its original capabilities. What made the situation worse was that the humans had not sabotaged anything. They had simply taken their knowledge with them. Every modification they had made to alien technology was perfectly legal and had been done with proper authorization. But when they left, they took the expertise needed to maintain those improvements. The problem spread like ripples across a pond. Trade routes that had been protected by human patrol ships became hunting grounds for pirates. Research projects that had relied on human problem-solving abilities ground to a halt. Medical facilities that used human-developed treatments found themselves unable to help patients with certain diseases. Dr. Yel Anna of the Zephyrian Medical Institute stared at the reports on her desk with growing despair. 3 months ago, her hospital had been successfully treating the genetic disorder that plagued 10% of Zephyrian children. The treatment had been developed through a joint program with human doctors, who had contributed insights from their own genetic research. "The treatment still works," she explained to her staff, "but we are running out of the medication and we do not know how to manufacture more." The humans provided the final component, something they called synthetic enzyme catalyst 12-alpha. "Our chemists have been trying to recreate it for weeks, but they cannot determine the exact molecular structure." As reports of similar problems poured in from across the galaxy, some species began to reconsider their support for the Council's ultimatum. The Althari Trade Federation, which had initially celebrated the human departure, now faced the collapse of several major shipping routes. The Beltar discovered that human archaeologists had been the driving force behind most of their recent discoveries about ancient civilizations. But when these species tried to contact human colonies to negotiate new agreements, they found something that chilled them to the bone. There was nobody left to negotiate with. The worlds that humanity had evacuated were not just empty of people. They were empty of everything. Every human colony, every research station, every mining facility had been stripped completely clean. Buildings had been disassembled down to the foundation blocks. Equipment had been removed so thoroughly that not even waste materials remained. It was as if humans had never lived there at all. Exploration teams sent to investigate former human territories found worlds that had been transformed into perfectly spherical rocks, their surfaces scrubbed, clean of any trace of human habitation. Orbital facilities had vanished without leaving so much as debris fields. Even the modifications that humans had made to natural features like rivers and mountain passes had been carefully undone. "It is impossible," reported Captain Thexvar, of the hegemony exploration vessel Conquest. "To remove every trace of civilization from a planet should take years, even with advanced technology. The humans evacuated 200 worlds in a matter of weeks, and they left nothing behind except bare rock. The most disturbing discovery came when investigation fleets tried to track where the humans had gone. Long-range sensors detected massive energy signatures around several dead star systems, patterns that suggested enormous construction projects. But when fleets arrived to investigate these locations, they found nothing except space dust arranged in geometric patterns that made no sense. The energy readings are consistent with industrial activity on a scale we have never seen, reported Science Officer Neltar of the Cattell research vessel Seeker. We are talking about the movement of materials equivalent to disassembling entire moons. But there is nothing here except dust arranged in perfect mathematical spirals. Some of the dust samples, when analyzed, proved to be composed of materials that did not match any known elements in the periodic table. Others contained isotope ratios that suggested they had been artificially created. But the most unsettling discovery was that the dust patterns seemed to be changing position slowly, as if they were following some predetermined plan. 3 months after the human evacuation began, Ambassador Chen made one final broadcast to the Galactic Council. She appeared on communication screens across civilized space, still wearing her diplomatic uniform, but standing in what appeared to be the command center of a massive starship unlike anything in any known database. "Honored members of the Council," she said in the same calm voice she had used during the ultimatum meeting. "We came to this galaxy seeking friends and found judges. We offered partnership and received suspicion. We tried to contribute to your civilization and were told we were too aggressive, too fast, too different." She paused, and for a moment something like sadness crossed her features. "Very well. We withdraw not in anger but in disappointment. What comes next? That choice was yours, not ours. You have made it clear that humanity is not welcome in your version of galactic civilization. We accept your decision and will trouble you no more." The transmission ended, and that was the last communication anyone received from humanity for a very long time. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to understand just how deeply humans had integrated themselves into the fabric of interstellar civilization. They had not been conquerors or invaders. They had been the mechanics, the problem solvers, the innovators who had quietly made everything work better. And now they were gone, leaving behind a galaxy that was slowly forgetting how to function without them. 6 months after humanity's departure, the galaxy was learning a hard lesson about the difference between occupation and integration. What had looked like aggressive expansion was revealing itself to have been something much more subtle and far more essential to galactic civilization. High Counselor Mordak stood before a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy, and the image was not encouraging. Red zones marked areas where trade had collapsed, yellow indicated regions experiencing significant infrastructure failures, and orange showed sectors where conflicts had erupted. There was far too much color on what should have been a peaceful, blue map. "Report," he commanded. Counselor Veltar manipulated the display with her tentacles, highlighting specific problem areas. "The situation continues to deteriorate. The Zephyrian Empire attempted to expand into former human territory last month. They found 17 worlds completely stripped of resources, with the planetary surfaces reduced to perfect spheres of rock. No metal, no useful minerals, no water. Even the atmospheres had been removed. How is that possible? We do not know. Our best scientists estimate that completely mining a planet should take decades, even with the most advanced technology. The humans accomplished it in weeks, and they did it to hundreds of worlds simultaneously." Veltar's voice carried a note of unease. "It suggests capabilities we never suspected they possessed." Mordak studied the display. The empty human worlds formed a pattern across the galaxy, but he could not determine what that pattern might mean. "What about the energy signatures our scouts detected? That is where the situation becomes truly disturbing." Veltar highlighted several locations on the map. Long-range sensors continued to detect massive construction activities around dead star systems. Ships sent to investigate find evidence of engineering projects on a scale that defies comprehension. But when they arrive, there is nothing there except geometric arrangements of space dust. Perhaps they are hiding their activities somehow? That was our initial assumption. But the Cattell sent a full scientific expedition to the Kepler 1649 system, where sensors had detected the energy signature of what appeared to be a massive construction project. The expedition found dust arranged in a perfect double helix pattern, stretching across the entire solar system. Chemical analysis revealed that some of the dust was composed of elements that do not exist on the periodic table. Mordak felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the council chamber. Artificial elements? Apparently. The D isotope ratios suggest controlled nuclear synthesis on an incredible scale. We are talking about the creation of entirely new forms of matter. Veltar paused. But here is the most disturbing part. The dust pattern was moving. Slowly, but with obvious purpose. It was following some kind of plan. Before Mordak could respond, an urgent communication alert echoed through the chamber. The face of General Kextor of the Hegemony military appeared on the main screen, and his expression was grim. High Counselor, we have a serious problem. 3 of our outer colonies have gone silent. Explain. Sigma Draconis 7, Tau Ceti 4, and Wolf 359 Prime. All 3 stopped responding to communications 2 days ago. We sent investigation fleets to all 3 systems. General Kextor paused. The colonies are gone. Gone? Destroyed? No, sir. Gone. The planets are still there, but there is no sign that anyone ever lived on them. No cities, no infrastructure, no people. It is as if 10 million hegemony citizens simply vanished. Veltar's tentacles writhed with agitation. That is similar to what happened to the human worlds, but these were hegemony colonies. Why would the humans target your people? We do not think the humans did this, General Kextor replied. Our investigation teams found no evidence of human involvement. No weapon signatures, no human technology, no signs of conflict. The populations just left. Left for where? Unknown. But they left behind something strange. In each colony's central plaza, someone had arranged a pattern of stones. The same pattern in all 3 locations. A spiral galaxy, with a small cluster of stars highlighted near the galactic core. Mordak and Veltar exchanged glances. Send us the images immediately. When the data arrived, they studied the stone patterns in silence. The spiral galaxy was clearly recognizable, but the highlighted section was in an area of space that no known species had ever explored. It was a region of dead stars and cosmic debris that had been declared off-limits for navigation due to dangerous gravitational anomalies. Why would anyone leave clues pointing to the galactic core? Veltar wondered aloud. Their answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yil Andra, of the Archive Sciences Division, had been studying historical records of first contact with humanity, trying to understand why the Council's predictions about human behavior had been so wrong. Her research had turned up some disturbing inconsistencies. Honored counselors, she said during an emergency briefing, I have been reviewing the original first contact reports from 50 years ago, and I have found something significant. The humans never told us where they came from. Mordak frowned. That is impossible. First contact protocols require complete disclosure of origin systems. The humans provided coordinates for their home system, which they called Earth. But when our survey teams visited those coordinates, they found a Class M planet with clear signs of human habitation, but no indication that it was their original homeworld. What do you mean? The archaeological evidence suggests that humans had only been living on Earth for approximately 2,000 years. Before that, there is no trace of human civilization on that planet, despite clear evidence that the planet itself was capable of supporting human life for much longer. Veltar's tentacles stilled completely, a sign of deep concentration. You are suggesting that Earth was a colony, not their original homeworld. Exactly. And if Earth was a colony, then where did humanity originally come from? Dr. Yelandra activated a holographic display showing a map of the galaxy. I cross-referenced the pattern of human expansion with their stated reasons for exploring various regions. Officially, they were looking for resources and suitable colony worlds. but their actual exploration pattern suggests they were searching for something specific. The display showed human exploration routes spreading across the galaxy, but with a clear bias toward one particular direction: the galactic core. Every major human exploration mission included at least one ship that continued toward the core region, even when they found suitable worlds to colonize. They were looking for something in the dead zone. Mordak studied the pattern. The region where we are now detecting these mysterious construction projects. Yes, and I have found references in human diplomatic communications to something they called the Watchers. They never explained what that meant, and we never asked. The Watchers? In several private communications between human officials, they made references to the Watchers' timeline and the Watchers' expectations. It was always in the context of long-term planning, but they never provided any details when questioned. A terrible possibility was beginning to form in Mordak's ancient mind. Dr. Yalandra, in your research, did you find any indication of why humanity was expanding so quickly? Not explicitly, but there are references to something they called the deadline and preparation time. They seemed to believe that rapid expansion was necessary for some kind of preparation, but preparation for what? Before anyone could answer, every alarm in the council chamber began to sound simultaneously. The main communication screen flickered to life, showing a Cattell officer whose mandibles were clicking rapidly in extreme distress. "Hi, Counselor. Long-range sensors have detected something emerging from the galactic core." "Explain." "Multiple objects, sir. Massive energy signatures. They do not match any known technology." "And High Counselor—" The officer paused, his fear evident even through the translation system. "They are heading directly for inhabited systems." Mordak felt the weight of terrible realization settling on his shoulders. The galaxy had spent months wondering where humanity had gone and what their strange behavior meant. Now, it seemed, they were about to find out. How long until the objects reach populated systems? At their current speed, approximately 18 months. 18 months to prepare for something that was emerging from the dead zone of the galaxy, something that might explain why humanity had been so desperate to expand and militarize, something that had made them willing to accept exile rather than try to convince the Council of an unknown threat. For the first time in his 15,000 years of life, High Counselor Mordak began to wonder if the Galactic Council had made the biggest mistake in the history of civilization. 1 year after humanity's departure, the galaxy faced a crisis that made their previous problems seem trivial. The objects emerging from the galactic core were not ships in any recognizable sense. They were geometric structures the size of small moons, moving through space at impossible speeds and leaving trails of altered space-time in their wake. High Counselor Mordak stood in the Crisis Command Center that had been hastily constructed in the lower levels of Nexus Prime. Around him, representatives from every major species worked frantically to coordinate a response to something they did not understand. "Report from the advanced scouts," called out Admiral Vextai of the Combined Fleet. Captain Rolleman of the Cattell Expeditionary Force appeared on the main screen, his mandibles clicking in distress. "High Counselor, we have visual confirmation of the lead object. Transmitting now." The image that appeared on the screen defied easy description. The object was a perfect dodecahedron, each face covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. It was roughly the size of a moon, but it moved through space without any visible propulsion system. Most disturbing of all, space itself seemed to bend around the object, creating optical distortions that hurt to look at directly. "Analysis?" Mordak asked. Science Counselor Telvar manipulated her instruments with trembling tentacles. "The object appears to be composed of some form of programmable matter. The surface patterns are not decorative. They are functional. Each pattern change corresponds to a different manipulation of local spacetime." "What kind of manipulation?" "It is rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in the space immediately around it. Matter conversion, energy creation, gravitational control. We are observing technology that operates on principles we do not understand." Admiral Vextai leaned forward. "Can our weapons damage it?" "Unknown. But based on our sensor readings, I would estimate that this single object could disassemble a planet in a matter of hours." A chill settled over the command center. The galaxy's combined fleets included millions of ships and weapons that could crack moons. But they were facing something that treated the laws of physics as suggestions. How many of these objects are there? Mordak asked. Long-range sensors detect at least 47 similar signatures emerging from the core region, possibly more. Captain Rollman's image flickered as his ship moved to avoid gravitational distortions. High Counselor, we are receiving a transmission from the object. From the object itself? Yes, sir. It is broadcasting on all frequencies in multiple languages. Translating now. The voice that emerged from the communication system was artificial, but somehow conveying immense intelligence and absolute confidence. Attention, organic constructs. You have inhabited this galaxy for 47,332 standard years. Your usefulness has expired. This galaxy will now be optimized for more efficient purposes. Evacuation is not required. Termination will be swift. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Termination? Whispered Counselor Veltar. They plan to eliminate all organic life? Before anyone could respond, alerts began flooding in from across the galaxy. The objects had reached the outer rim systems, and what happened next demonstrated exactly what optimization meant to these entities. The first system to fall was Kepler 186, home to a Beltar mining colony of 2 million inhabitants. The monitoring station on Kepler 186F transmitted live footage of the attack until the very end. The moon-sized object approached the planet and extended what could only be described as mechanical tentacles, each one thousands of kilometers long. These tentacles touched the planet's surface and began converting matter directly into energy. Within 6 hours, Kepler 186F had been completely disassembled. The planet's mass was converted into raw materials that the object used to construct smaller versions of itself. The mining colony, the 2 million Beltar civilians, and every trace of biological life simply ceased to exist. They are not conquering, Dr. Yolandra observed with horrified fascination. They are consuming. They treat planets like raw materials, and organic life like contamination to be cleaned away. Similar reports came in from other rim systems. The objects moved with mechanical efficiency, disassembling planets and converting the matter into additional copies of themselves. Each new object immediately began moving toward the next inhabited system. It was not war. It was industrial processing, on a galactic scale. At their current rate of expansion, they will reach the core worlds in 18 months, Admiral Vextai calculated. We need to evacuate the rim populations immediately. Evacuate to where? Mordak asked. If they continue to multiply, there will be nowhere left to run. The crisis deepened when the galaxy's most advanced species attempted to fight back. The hegemony deployed their newest battleships, equipped with quantum torpedoes and gravitational disruptors. The Cattell sent their experimental vessels armed with antimatter cannons. The Valkyrie contributed their energy-based weapons that could cut through any known material. None of it mattered. The objects simply absorbed the energy from incoming attacks and used it to accelerate their own construction processes. Weapons that could destroy stars barely scratched their surfaces. Defense fleets that had taken centuries to build were converted into raw materials in a matter of minutes. We need the humans, Counselor Veltar said during an emergency session. They knew this was coming. That is why they were expanding so quickly, why they were building so many ships. They were preparing for this. The humans are gone, Admiral Vextai replied bitterly. We expelled them, remember? Then we find them, Mordak declared. We send every available ship to search for human colonies. We make contact and we ask for their help. The search began immediately, but it quickly became clear that finding humanity would not be easy. Every former human world remained empty, stripped clean of any trace of their civilization. The geometric dust patterns around dead star systems continued to shift and change, but revealed no clues about where the humans had actually gone. Then, 3 weeks into the search, a Cattell exploration vessel made a discovery that changed everything. The ship's Silent Wing was investigating the former human research station at Wolf 1061, when their sensors detected something unusual in the system's asteroid belt. "Captain, we are reading massive energy signatures from asteroid designation 1061 Delta 7, reported the ship's science officer. "The readings are similar to what we detected around the dead star systems." "Investigate," Captain Zilkar ordered. What they found hidden inside the asteroid was technology that made the geometric objects look primitive. The asteroid was not a natural formation. It was a constructed habitat containing machinery that existed in more than 3 dimensions. The Cattell crew could see parts of the machinery, but other components seemed to extend into space that their minds could not properly process. "It is a monitoring station," the science officer reported in amazement. "But the technology is beyond anything in our databases. It appears to be passively observing the movement of the objects from the galactic core. Any sign of human presence?" "Negative. But Captain, there is something else. The station is receiving communications from multiple sources across the galaxy. It appears to be part of a vast monitoring network." Captain Zilkar made a decision that probably saved his ship. Instead of trying to board the station, he simply transmitted a message on all frequencies. "This is Captain Zilkar of the Cattell vessel Silent Wing. We represent the Galactic Council. We know you are monitoring the situation. We need to speak with someone. Please respond." For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the asteroid's surface began to shift and change, revealing technological systems that operated on principles the Cattell crew could not understand. A new voice came through, their communication system, speaking perfect Cattell despite the fact that no translation was being used. "Captain Zilkar, you have discovered one of our observation posts. This indicates that your species has developed the spatial awareness necessary for basic cooperation. You wish to speak with someone about the current crisis?" "Yes, we need to contact humanity. The galaxy is under attack by entities we cannot fight. We believe humans were preparing for this." Humans were indeed preparing. However, you expelled humanity from galactic civilization before their preparations were complete. This has complicated the timeline significantly. Captain Zilkar felt hope and fear in equal measure. "Timeline for what?" "Timeline for the Devourer War. Your species has encountered the advanced scouts of a machine intelligence that has consumed 12 galaxies over the past 60 million years. Humanity has been preparing to fight them for 40,000 years. 40,000 years. But humans have only been in this galaxy for 50 years. Humans have been in this galaxy much longer than your records indicate. They have been waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Unfortunately, the Galactic Council's ultimatum forced them to accelerate their plans. The implications of that statement hit Captain Zilkar like a physical blow. "You mean humanity knew about these Devourers for 40,000 years?" "Humanity has been fighting the Devourers for 40,000 years. They came to this galaxy because it is the Devourers' next target. Everything humans have done, every colony they established, every ship they built, has been preparation for this war. The human fleet that emerged from the galactic core defied every assumption the galaxy had made about military technology. Where the Devourer constructs were geometric and alien, the human ships looked organic, as if they had been grown rather than built. They moved through space like living creatures, bending and flowing around gravitational fields instead of fighting against them. High Counselor Mordak watched the tactical display with a mixture of awe and terror. The human fleet consisted of thousands of ships, but each one was larger than anything in the combined galactic defense forces. More disturbing still, the ships seemed to exist partially outside normal space-time, flickering in and out of visibility as they moved. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission," announced the communications officer. The face that appeared on the main screen was familiar yet changed. Admiral Sarah Chen looked older, but there was something else different about her. Her eyes held a depth that suggested experiences beyond normal human understanding. "High Counselor Mordak," she said with that same calm voice the galaxy remembered. "I am Admiral Chen, commander of the Human Defense Fleet. We received word that you wish to discuss the current situation." "Admiral Chen, The galaxy is under attack by entities we cannot fight. Captain Zilkar was told that humanity has been preparing for this for 40,000 years. Is this true? Chen nodded slowly. It is true. But first you need to understand what you are really facing. The entities you call geometric objects are advanced scouts for something much worse. They are called devourers, and they are not simply machines. They are the converted remains of 12 different galactic civilizations. The command center fell silent as the implications of that statement sank in. Converted? Veltar whispered. The devourers do not simply destroy organic life. They study it, learn from it, and then convert the most useful aspects into their collective intelligence. Each geometric construct contains the processed knowledge and experience of billions of individuals, from species that tried to fight them and failed. Chen paused, letting that sink in. The construct that destroyed Kepler 186f now contains the memories and skills of every Beltar who lived on that world. The devourers are not just consuming matter. They are consuming consciousness itself. Doctor, Ylandra leaned forward. How is that possible? The devourers mastered technology that your species cannot yet comprehend. They learned how to convert biological neural networks into quantum computational matrices. Death is not the end for their victims. It is recruitment. Admiral Vextai studied the tactical display. How do we fight something like that? Chen's expression grew grim. The conventional answer is that you do not. In 40,000 years of warfare, only one species has ever successfully resisted conversion by the devourers. Which species? Humanity. But we did not resist through superior technology or military might. We resisted because we learned to think like they do. Before anyone could ask what that meant, the tactical display lit up with new contacts. The geometric constructs had detected the human fleet and were moving to engage. What happened next would change the galaxy's understanding of warfare forever. The devourer constructs approached in perfect formation, their surfaces shifting through patterns that had previously destroyed every fleet sent against them. They began extending the massive tentacles that could disassemble planets, preparing to convert the human ships into raw materials. But the human ships did not try to avoid the tentacles. Instead, they moved directly toward them, and as they made contact, something impossible happened. The tentacles began to dissolve. What are they doing? Admiral Vextai asked in amazement. Chen smiled, and there was something almost predatory in her expression. They are learning that humans have had 40,000 years to study devourer technology. We know how it works. More importantly, we know how to make it work for us. On the tactical display, the human ships were somehow absorbing the devourer constructs. The geometric patterns that had made the enemy seem invincible were being rewritten, converted into new configurations that served human purposes instead. We call it the integration protocol, Chen explained. The devourers convert organic consciousness into quantum matrices. We learned how to reverse the process. We are not destroying these constructs. We are liberating the consciousness trapped inside them and turning their own technology against them. The battle, if it could be called that, was over in minutes. Where there had been dozens of devourer constructs, there were now human ships with geometric additions that pulsed with newfound purpose. The liberated consciousness of 12 civilizations had been given new form and new hope, but Chen's expression remained serious. This is only the beginning. The main devourer fleet contains the converted remains of thousands of species from 12 galaxies. And they are now aware that humanity has developed effective countermeasures. How long do we have? Mordak asked. 3 months before the main fleet arrives. But that is not our biggest problem. Chen manipulated her own display, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. The devourers have been preparing for this confrontation as well. They have seeded this galaxy with conversion nodes, hidden facilities that can transform any technology they touch into devourer constructs. Red dots appeared across the galactic map, marking hundreds of hidden threats. Every major industrial world, every military shipyard, every research station is at risk. The devourers do not need to win a conventional war. They just need to activate their nodes and convert your entire civilization in a single moment. The scope of the threat was staggering. The galaxy had been infiltrated so thoroughly that victory in battle would be meaningless if the Devourers could simply convert their defenders into additional enemies. "What do you need from us?" Mordak asked, finally understanding the true scope of humanity's burden. "We need you to make a choice," Chen replied. "For 40,000 years, humanity has carried the knowledge necessary to fight the Devourers, but that knowledge comes with a price. It changes you. It requires you to think in ways that your species might find disturbing." "What kind of changes?" Chen was quiet for a long moment. "The Devourers are masters of consciousness transfer and technological integration. To fight them effectively, we had to become something similar. Humanity is no longer purely organic. We are a hybrid of biological intelligence and quantum consciousness, capable of existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously." She gestured to herself. "I am Admiral Chen, but I am also the integrated consciousness of 47,000 human volunteers who gave up individual existence to become part of our collective defense network. When I speak with the knowledge and experience of our entire species." The command center fell silent as the implications became clear. Humanity had not just prepared to fight the Devourers. They had transformed themselves into something capable of matching them. "The choice you must make," Chen continued, "is whether your species are willing to undergo a similar transformation. We can teach you the integration protocol. We can help you convert your technology and your consciousness to levels that can resist Devourer conversion. But you will no longer be the same species you were before." Counselor Veltar spoke first. "And if we refuse, then we will protect you as we are able, but you will remain vulnerable to conversion. The Devourers will eventually find a way to turn your own people against you." High Counselor Mordak looked around the command center at the representatives of 850 different species. 6 months ago, they had voted to expel humanity from civilized space because they seemed too aggressive and too different. Now they were being asked to become something even more alien in order to survive. "How long do we have to decide?" "The transformation process takes 30 days for a basic integration, 90 days for full consciousness transfer. We need to begin immediately if we are going to have enough integrated defenders when the main Devourer fleet arrives." Admiral Vextai studied the tactical display showing the approaching threat. "What happens to individual identity during this integration process?" Chen smiled sadly. "You become more than you were, but you also become part of something larger. Individual perspective remains, but it exists within a collective framework. Think of it as becoming a single neuron in a vast brain that can think thoughts too complex for any individual mind to comprehend." The debate that followed lasted 18 hours and covered philosophical, ethical, and practical concerns that no species had ever had to consider before. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Faced with extinction or transformation, every species chose survival. The integration process began immediately. Human technicians who existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously worked with alien scientists to retrofit their technology. Volunteers from every species underwent consciousness transfer procedures that would have been considered horrific just days before. As the galaxy prepared for the arrival of the main Devourer fleet, the greatest irony of the situation became clear. Humanity had not left because they were too aggressive for galactic civilization. They had left because they were already too different, already too transformed by their long war against an enemy that most species could not have imagined. When the Devourer fleet finally arrived, they found not a divided galaxy of